Economists have discovered that there is a direct relationship that exists between spending in the economy and the real GDP. And they have noted that when there is an increase in spending in the economy, it results in an increase in the real output in the economy. And if there is a decrease in spending in the economy, it consequently results in a decrease in the real output in the economy. Hello there, and welcome to Homeschooling Adventures. My name is P. Jerauni, and in this video, we are going to be looking at the concept of the multiplier. In other words, we are going to be revising the multiplier effect as we prepare for our exams. Now, someone might be wondering what multiplier effect is, but let me just remind viewers what the multiplier effect is. Now, multiplier effect is the extent of change in real output and income that results from a change in the aggregate demand. Okay, and in the previous videos, you would recall that we have looked at the circular flow model, where we noted that, where we have learned that the components of real GDP, they are going to be classified into four. We noted that we have our consumption spending by households. We also noted that we have our government spending. We also noted that we have investment spending, and we also noted that we have net exports. Therefore, any change on any one of these results in a change in the real output, and income will be much greater than the injections. Okay, now this change, this difference that we have between the injections and the real output, the relationship that exists between the injections and the real output, is what we call the multiplier effect. Okay, so we have also noted that now. Okay, so probably the good starting point will be for us to start by looking at what we now understand from the topic of the multiplier. Now, the first thing that we now understand is when we talk about the multiplier, it's generally influenced by two things. The first thing that influences it is the size of the income, additional income that is going to be spent on demanding goods and services, which in this context we call it the marginal propensity to consume. We call it the MPC. So I'm just going to write it's called the MPC. Now, when we talk about the MPC, we are saying this is the portion of additional income that is going to be used to demand goods and services. Okay, that portion of the additional income that is going to be used to demand goods and services is what we call the marginal propensity to consume. That's our MPC. And then the second factor that also influences the size of our multiplier, remember we said it's the MPS. Now, when you talk about the MPS, we are saying this is the portion of additional income that is not going to be used to demand goods and services, but they are going to, households or businesses are going to decide to save that amount of money. So this is the portion that is going to be saved and not used to demand goods and services, and this is a portion that is used to demand goods and services. So for every additional income that is earned either by households or by firms, it's going to either be used to buy additional goods and services, demanding goods and services in the economy, or it's going to be used as savings in the economy. So you would now agree with me that the first rule that we now have is, you would probably recall that when this is added, the MPC and MPS, our answer should always be equal to a 1. In other words, when you add your MPS and the MPC, your answer should always be equal to 1. Now, someone might be wondering, how then do we calculate the MPC, and how are we going to calculate the MPS? Now, when we are calculating the MPC, I'm just going to show you how we calculate the MPC here. MPC, the formula for calculating our marginal propensity to consume, we say it's a change in consumption. It's a change in consumption. Then we divide that by a change in the income, okay, change in consumption divided by change in income. So that's how we calculate our MPC. And then if it is an MPS, it would now mean that it's a change in savings divided by our change in income. Okay, so those are the formulas that you now need to understand. Now remember, learners, when we talk about this consumption here, our consumption is generally divided into two. And then remember, we said our consumption, we have what is called autonomous consumption, and then we have the second one that is called induced consumption. And we are going to be looking at this as the video goes on. We are going to be looking at it later on in this particular video. Right, so let's just continue with what we now know. The other thing that we now know is when we talk about our multiplier, we said our multiplier K, it's because in grade 11 we looked at what is called the money multiplier, okay, but in grade 12 we are looking at what is called the spending multiplier, or the multiplier of spending. Okay, now what it means now is when we talk about the multiplier of spending, it looks at how a change in spending, in aggregate spending, is going to result in a change in this national income, in the size of our national income. So in that case, it would now emerge that the formula that we are going to be using for us to be able to calculate the multiplier, it should be a formula that speaks to the amount of money that has been spent in the economy, to the amount that has been spent in the economy. Okay, so in this case, it would now mean that our formula for the multiplier K is going to be 1 over 1 minus our M P C. So it means the formula for calculating our multiplier is going to be 1 over 1 minus MPC. Why are we saying MPC? Because this is the marginal propensity to consume. In other words, this is the amount of additional income that is going to be spent on demanding goods and services. So this is a spending that is used from that additional amount of income that we have received when we demand goods and services. So that's why we are using our MPC there. Okay, and then you would also find that this formula can also be rewritten, and it will end up appearing as this. If it is rewritten, then it would mean that it's going to be 1 over M P S. Okay, so we are saying it can also be rewritten, and it will end up as 1 over MPS. Okay, now let's just have a scenario so that we can be able to apply that formula and see how it works and make sense of the formula. Now what we are saying is, let's assume that your parents are the only ones who are working in the country, and they are a representative of the whole population. Okay, and they are the only ones who are working. Okay, I'm just using them so that we can simplify this concept here. So let's assume they are the only ones who are working. Okay, and the amount of money that they were earning before, they were earning at 10,000 rands, and then after they got an increase, they got an increase of another 10,000 rands. So now their salary is now 20,000, but the increase that they got was a 10,000. Additional income that they received was a 10,000. So it would now mean that that additional income is going to resemble, that additional income from my example is going to signify or signal the injections, and I'm just going to put my injections there as 10,000. Okay, it's going to resemble 10,000. Those are the injections. Okay, right, and then you do now find that your parents, they then decide to increase on the demand of goods and services by an amount of 8,000, which means if previously, if they were buying groceries for 5,000 for example. Now after this increase, they are going to be buying grocery of 13,000. Why is it 13,000? It is because they have earned an additional income, and they are going to use that additional income to demand more goods and services. So it means now we are then going to have that portion of income that they are going to spend on demanding goods and services, okay, to be 8,000. So I'm just going to give it as the monetary value of our we are trying to calculate our MPC there. So it means they are going to spend 8,000. So our formula, remember we said our formula is change in consumption. So now the change in consumption is now 8,000, because at first they were consuming 5,000, now they consume 13,000. So the change there is 8,000. So it means our change there is going to be 8,000. Okay, 8,000. Okay, that's what they are going to demand more. They are going to increase their demand by 8,000. Okay, and then it would now mean that their change in income, they have now received an additional income of 10,000. So their additional income is 10,000, which we have indicated here as injections. Okay, I hope you are following. So we had indicated it there as 10,000. So if you go to your calculator and you punch in these numbers, you are going to see that the answer that you get on your calculator is a 0.8. The answer that you get on your calculator is a 0.8. Okay, so this is your MPC. This becomes your marginal propensity to consume. In other words, they are going to consume 0.8 of any additional income that they earn. Okay, they are going to increase on their consumption by 0.8, or 0.8 of the additional income is going to the consumption of goods and services. For any additional income that they get, then 0.8 of that is going to go to the consumption of goods and services. Okay, right. Now before we apply and we calculate the multiply, I might just as well need to calculate the value of MPS so that you can see how MPS is also calculated. Okay, so it would now mean that our MPS, because we now want to apply the first rule that I gave you, this one here is what we want to apply. Okay, right. So it would now mean that our MPS is going to be a change in savings over a change in income. Okay, it would mean that it's a change in savings over a change in income. So if they received 10,000 and they've decided to spend an extra 8,000, so it means on the 10,000 that they got, they are going to save 2,000. Correct? I hope it makes sense. Okay, so it means now our savings here have increased by 2,000. Okay, our savings here have increased by 2,000, which means now that if our savings increased by 2,000, it's 2,000 divided by our change in income, which in this case is a 10,000. That's the amount that they got as their increase at work. Correct? Right. So what it means now is we are saying here our MPS becomes a 0.2. If you go to your calculator and you press 2,000 divided by 10,000, your answer that you are going to get is a 0.2. So that's your MPS. So this is what we are saying. If you now add this 0.2 plus a 0.8, the answer that you are going to get is a 1. Okay, because 0.2 plus 0.8, the answer you get there is 1. So now we now need to apply go and calculate our multiplier. It means now our multiplier K is equal to, we said 1 over 1 minus MPC. So our MPC in this case is 0.8. So it means 1 over 1 minus 0.8. Okay, and if we do that, it means now on our calculator, if you press that, you are going to find that it's 1 over 0.2. okay, and 1 over 0.2, when it's pressed on the calculator, you find that your answer becomes 5 times, okay, 5 times. It's going to be 5 times, okay. Now this one is the value of our multiplier, so it means our multiplier is 5 times. And what does this mean? What it means is a simple injection of 10,000 is going to be increased 5 times more, okay. It's going to be 5 times more, which means now our when we are now told to calculate our national income, it would now mean that our national income y there is going to be equal to, okay, the change in the national income is going to be the value of the multiplier, which is our k, okay, multiplied by our injections, okay, multiplied by our injections, which in this case is, we are saying the value of the multiplier is this 5. It's going to be 5, okay, there 5 times our 10,000, which is the amount that was injected, correct? Right, that's the amount that was injected, so 10,000. So we'll now see that the value of our national income is going to increase by 50,000, okay. So it means a simple injection of 10,000, if the MPS is 0.8, if the MPC is 0.8, then it would mean that it's going to result in an increase in the size of our national income to the tune of 50,000, okay. So we inject 10,000, it's going to increase our national income to by 50,000, okay, which means now sometimes you can also be asked to calculate the size, now the new size of our national income. It would now mean that our national income there, it has increased. This is a change in the national income. This one is the change in national income. So it means now the actual size of our national income now is going to be this 50,000 that we have here, 50,000, okay, 50,000. I'll just put 50,000 like that, okay, plus the amount that we had at first. Remember, at first we had 10,000 because we said before your parents got a salary increase, they were earning 10,000. So we have our 10,000 there, okay. So that means that's our 10,000, which means now the size of our national income ends up becoming 60,000, okay. I hope you understand what I'm saying and you are following what I'm saying here, okay. Right, so it means this becomes the size of our national income, okay. So what are we saying now? We are saying this is the change in national income. Our national income has increased by 50,000, having injected an amount of 10,000, and the MPC, if it was 0.8, then it would mean that our multiplier is going to be 5 times, which means that 10,000 is going to increase 5 times more, okay, right. And then we did that and we calculated the change in national income to be 50,000, and then that 50,000 we are adding it to the original amount that we had before the injection of 10,000, and then we realize that now the size of our national income is now 60,000. So it's very important now that even when you answer these questions in the exam, the learner should understand what exactly the examiner is asking you about. Sometimes in certain exams they are asking you about calculating the value of the multiplier, which means now it's going to be 5 times, okay. Sometimes they are asking you about calculating the change in national income, okay, which is going to result from that investment change, okay. Okay, so you would now need to understand that the change is this one, the 50,000, and then sometimes the examiner is asking you about the new value of our national income, which means now this is how you are supposed to do it. So it's very, very important that you understand how you calculate each one of those elements. Okay, so I will just post the question now, and then I'm just going to ask you to go through that question, and then I will meet you after about 10 minutes having attempted the question. Okay, good luck. Okay, those are the questions that are now appearing on your screen. So just pause the video and go through those questions, and then we'll meet you on the other side. When you are done, you just click play, then we'll come with the answers to those questions that are on your screen. Okay, all the best. Thanks. All right, I hope you managed. I don't know whether it was difficult or it was easy, but these are the kind of questions that you would generally expect in your section B. Normally examiners, they ask this question on either question 2.1.2 and question 4.1.2 in the case of your prelims as well as your NSC exams. And I believe that you have managed to handle those kind of questions. Okay, right, so let's just quickly go through the questions together, and as we go through the questions, I'll ask you to listen carefully to what we are going to be explaining and clarifying, and then you will also be synchronizing it with your answers there. Okay, so the first question reads, what does income method calculate? What does the income method calculate? And like what I said in the previous videos, we said when you are in the exam, you are supposed to bring with you your highlighter, and then now we are looking here at the income method. Okay, we are looking at the income method, and then they say what does it calculate, or what does it add up. So in other words, you are just going to be listing those things that are added up when we are using our income method. And you do now recall that our income method, it looks at the income that has been received by households, okay, for or owners of factors of production. Is that correct? So it would now mean that we generally have 4 factors of production. You would recall that we have land, we have labor, we have capital, we have entrepreneurship, and all these, they are supposed to be affected when we are using our income method. So what does it calculate? In other words, we are saying the income method, it adds up all the money that was earned by households as a remuneration for the factors of production. In other words, it adds up all the money that was earned by households as a remuneration for the factors of production. All money, okay, all money that was received. And examples of this, we would recall that we have a rent, we have things like rent, we have things like wages, we have things like interest, we have things like profit. Okay, so these are all the things that are included in our income method. So we are going to look at the rent, the wages, the income, the interest, and the profits. Okay, that's what the income method looks at. Okay, so I was expecting that learners were just supposed to say the income method, it adds up all the money that was received by households as remuneration. Remember, households are the owners of factors of production, so all the money that they have received as a remuneration for the factors of production, it could be money that came from rent, or money that came as wages when they gave labor, or money that came from interest, or money that came from profit. All that amount of money, it is added up in our income method. Okay, so that's what then if you say that, well done, those are your 2 marks there. Then the next part of the question, again, it says the next question 3.2, it says, how would a positive multiplier affect, or multiplier effect influence the economy? In other words, we are looking at, it's a positive multiplier. Okay, what is the effect of a positive multiplier on the economy? In other words, on the economy. Okay, so what is the effect of a positive multiplier on the economy? Okay, now this is what you need to understand. We are saying our multiplier, normally when it is a positive multiplier, it means that firms can now start increasing on production. Okay, and so they can now start selling more goods. Why? Because we are saying households now and the other participants in the circular flow, they now have more money to buy goods and services. So what is the effect of that on the economy? It results in firms increasing on production. Okay, that's the effect. So it results in an increased production by firms. Okay, and if firms are to increase in production, it would mean that they are going to end up using more factors of production from households, because remember we said in our circular flow, households are the owners of the factors of production. So when firms are increasing on production, it would mean that they are going to demand more factors of production from the households, and that demanding of more factors of production from households would generally entail that we are going to end up having high levels of unemployment as the firms try to increase on their production capacity, okay, to try and match the level of demand. Okay, right. And then you would also find that because now more households now are selling factors of production, more factors of production to the businesses, it would now follow that households are going to earn more income. They are going to earn more money for the factors of production. They are going to earn the money from rent, from wages, from interest, and from profits. Okay, because remember all these are owned by households. So if the households are offering these more to businesses, so that businesses can be able to produce, then it would mean that households are going to earn more income. Okay, so it results in more income as well. Okay, and then you would also find that when there is more income and the firms have increased on their production capacity, then we are saying our GDP is going to increase. The value of our GDP is going to increase. So it also results in the economic growth. Okay, it also results in economic growth. Okay, so you could have given me any one of those. What is the effect of a positive multiplier? We said a positive multiplier results in firms having to increase on the production, okay, of goods and services. Okay, and then for them to be able to increase the production of goods and services, it can also result in even the firms hiring more people, okay, or hiring more factors of production, or employing more factors of production from households. And if firms employ more factors of production from households, then it means it's more income that is going to be earned by the households. And if there's more production that firms have also done, then it would mean that there's going to be high levels of economic growth, okay, or there will be an increase in GDP, in real GDP. So Elena could have given me any one of the four that I have indicated just now. And then the next question now that we have is explain the influence on income if injections are less than leakages. Explain the influence on income, the influence on income, the influence on income, okay, if injections are less, if injections are less than our leakages. Okay, right. So this is what we now need to understand. So we are supposed to explain how less injections is going to influence on income. Okay, if we have less injections compared to leakages, how is it going to affect the income? So I hope you understand what the question is asking for there. So you are explaining the influence on income. Okay, in a situation where we have injections that are less than leakages. So what it means now is we are saying our situation that we have here, I'm just going to write it here, we have our injections, they are less than our leakages. Okay, they are less than our leakages, they are less than our leakages. Okay, our injections are less than our leakages. So in this case, you would now find that when injections are less than leakages, then what it means is we are having more money that is leaving the circular flow than the amount of money that is coming into the circular flow. That's what this scenario is. It would mean that we have more money that is leaving the circular flow than the amount of money that is coming into the circular flow. Okay, it could be as a result of imports. If you recall, when we start importing more goods than what we are exporting, it's a leakage. And sometimes it could be as a result of more savings. It means we are saving more and a lot of money is being withdrawn from the circular flow. It could be as a result of taxation. Sometimes when we pay more taxes, then it means more money will be leaving the circular flow than the amount of money that is coming into the circular flow that is available for demanding goods and services. So this question here is asking us for the influence on income if injections are less than leakages. So what learners would generally have said there was they were going to say more outflows that result from leakages will lead to less income that is going to be generated by the economy, because it would now mean that we are going to have more money that is leaving the circular flow. And if more money is leaving the circular flow, then it would mean that we are going to have less income that is being generated by the economy. Okay, so it means there is less income that is going to be generated by the economy. Okay, so if you had said it will lead to less income being generated by the economy, then I'm going to accept that as correct, and those are your 2 marks there. Okay, right, then we go to the next one, which is question 3.4. It then reads, how will an increase in marginal propensity to save MPS influence a change in aggregate income? Now what we need to understand, remember we said our marginal propensity to save is that portion of additional income that domestic components decide not to spend on goods and services, but they decide to save it. Okay, so our marginal propensity to save, the question here says, what will an increase in marginal propensity to save, what will be the effect of an increase in the marginal propensity to save? Okay, how is it going to affect the aggregate income? Okay, remember our aggregate income is our national income. So if our MPS increases, then what is its effect on the national income? That's what we can say this question is asking about. So I'm just going to highlight what we are asked there, and we are talking about an increase in MPS, an increase in MPS. Then what is its influence on how will it influence the change in aggregate income? So we are saying, how is it going to affect the change in aggregate income? Okay, so this is what learners needed to understand. Okay, so what we need to understand, learners, remember, every time when our savings increase, they have a tendency of reducing on the amount of money that is going to be spent on demanding goods and services. So its effect is, if we have an increase in MPS, it results in a decrease in the aggregate income of the country, because the people are not going to spend the money, but they are going to be using the money to store it and use it on a later date. So what they are going to do is, they are not going to be spending the money, rather they are going to be saving the money. Okay, so if that happens, then it means it reduces on the amount of money that is available for spending. Okay, so what does it do? It means an increase in MPS is going to result in a decrease in our national income, and this rule appears to be very true with all the leakages. Okay, we look at things like taxation. If we have an increase in the marginal rate of taxation, our MRT, or we look at our MPM, which is the marginal propensity to import, if we have an increase in MPM, or we have an increase in MRT, or we have an increase in MPS, they all reduce the national income. Why? Because these are leakages. Leakages, they reduce on our national income. Leakages reduce on our national income. So any leakage, it can be marginal propensity to import, which is our MPM, or our marginal rate of taxation, which is our MRT, or the marginal propensity to save. If any one of these increases, okay, then it means we are going to have a reduction in the size of our national income. Okay, right, so that's what we are talking about there. Right, then the next one is what formula for calculating the multiplier in a four-sector economy. Now, the question is asking us about the formula that is used when calculating the multiplier. The formula for calculating the multiplier is what I want, and this multiplier is for a four-sector economy. Now what we now know is our four-sector economy, it is an economy that has the foreign sector. Right, now let's just have the formula for our four-sector economy. Remember, we said when we have our open economy, the formula that we have, it's going to be C for spending, okay, plus I, okay, plus our G, okay, plus our X minus our M. Okay, right, now what is the formula for calculating the multiplier? Now this one is when it's an open economy, but it's not for calculating multiplier. Learners need to understand this formula is not calculating the multiplier. This is a formula for calculating the aggregate expenditure in an open economy. This one is for aggregate expenditure in an open economy. This one is for aggregate expenditure in an open economy. Okay, right, so the question here now is, it's requiring us to give the formula for the multiply, okay, but in an open economy where we have a foreign sector. So what you now need to understand is the formula for calculating the multiplier is going to be 1 over M P S, okay, which is the marginal propensity to save, okay, by the domestic components, okay, and then we are also going to add our M P M, which is our marginal propensity to import this, okay. That's what we are going to add, the marginal propensity to import. And then we are also going to add our M R T. which is our marginal rate of taxation, which is as a result of what? Of this, of government. Okay, right. So this is the formula that we have for calculating the multiplier in an open economy. So we are saying this one is the multiplier for a 4-sector model. Okay, this is the correct formula, okay, for a 4-sector model. It means it's 1 over marginal propensity to save plus marginal propensity to import plus marginal rate of taxation. Okay, right. Now, which sometimes can also be called the marginal propensity of taxation, but I will use the word marginal rate of taxation. Okay, so this is how we calculate it. Why is it now this one for an open economy? It is because it involves the imports. It involves this MPM. This MPM is the marginal propensity to import. So because it's marginal propensity to import, it means it involves the foreign sector. Okay, so you need to remember the formula for a 4-sector model. Okay, all right, so it's very important there. Okay, all right, then let's just move to the next question, unless if there are some questions, we can then give you the next question to do, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes again to try and go through this activity, and I'll join you after 10 minutes. So you now know what to do. Just hit the pause button, you go through the question, and then you will come in after 10 minutes, and then we'll take it up from there. Okay, right, thank you. Okay, so that's the question there. So I will just give you about 10 minutes to go through the question, and then I'll be with you shortly. So just pause the video, attempt the questions, and then I'll be with you shortly. All the best. Yes, and welcome back. Now, I want to believe that you managed to handle the question. It's a fairly easy question that we are given, and I want to believe that you managed to handle that one. Okay, if not, then let's just go through the activity together, and you are going to be marking your own work. Okay, now the question here says, study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. In other words, what we are going to do is we are going to start by studying the graph, and then after the studying the graph, then we will answer the questions that follow. Okay, so that's what we are expected to do. So what we can see here is this one appears to be the multiplier graph. Okay, it's the multiplier that is shown in a graph, and then we are told that we do have on the y-axis we have expenditure, and then this side we have our national income. Okay, and then we can also see that our consumption function, our C there, is equal to, it says C is equal to 10 plus 0.5 of income. Now this is divided into two. Our consumption function, remember in the previous, just a few slides back, we looked at the two things that make up consumption, and we identified the autonomous consumption, and we also identified induced consumption. So in this case, it means now if you try to identify from this, we said autonomous consumption is that consumption that is not influenced by the income level. Okay, in other words, this is consumption when income is 0. Okay, right, and from this you can now see that we have this 10 here and that 30 here. These appear to be the autonomous. Why? Because this is what it is here. Okay, it means it's this one here, it's this part here. So that appears to be our autonomous consumption there. That's our autonomous consumption there. Okay, and then you can also see that this part here is also another autonomous consumption. Okay, for the first consumption function, and this one is for the second consumption function. Okay, so let's just look at it again. The consumption function, then we have plus 0.5y. It means that 0.5y is 0.5 of the income. So it means this is influenced by the income. So this forms part of what we call induced consumption. So this one is induced consumption, this one is autonomous consumption, and then when we add the two, that's our consumption function. Okay, right. Okay, well done. Now let's just also analyze here. You can also see that the consumption function is shifted from this first one to the second one. So we at first the autonomous was 10, now autonomous is at 30, and then the induced, it remains 0.5 of the income. Okay, right, that's fine. So let's go to the questions. Name the two sectors involved in the deriving the macroeconomic multiplier. Name the two sectors involved in deriving the macroeconomic multiplier. So what you are supposed to know there, you remember, with the two sectors that are involved in deriving our macroeconomic multiplier are firms, or which we call businesses, and then we also have the other one, which is households. So it's firms and businesses. Okay, it's firms or businesses and your households. Okay, those are the two sectors that are involved in the macroeconomic multiplier: firms and households, or businesses and households. Okay, right. So you give me any two, those two, give me those two, then you get your 1 mark there, because the question was saying name the two, so you needed to give us the two. So you give me those two, then you get 1 mark. Okay, right. Then the next one, what is the value of autonomous consumption? What is the value of autonomous consumption? What is the value of autonomous consumption? Okay, autonomous consumption. Okay, for the original. So we are looking at the original consumption function. The original consumption function. What is the value of autonomous consumption in the original consumption function? So what learners needed to do, you needed to identify the original consumption function, and the original consumption function is this one here. Okay, that's the original consumption function. This one is the second one after the change, because this arrow here indicates that it was changing from the left to the right. Okay, right. And then you would also find that even this arrow is also indicating that it shifted from this side to that side. Okay, right. So let's just look at what we are talking about here. So what we are talking about is what is the value of the consumption function for the original what is the value of the autonomous consumption for the original consumption function? So what we are going to do now is we said autonomous is that one. It means it's this one that we have here. Okay, and where this arrow here, where's this graph here meets the vertical axis, okay, that's where we are saying that's when we have our autonomous consumption. Why? Because that's consumption when income is 0. So anywhere where it touches this vertical axis, that's autonomous consumption, because that's expenditure when income is 0. Okay, right. So that's fine. So it means now your correct answer there was going to be 10 billion. Okay, your answer there was going to be a 10 billion. Okay, or someone was just going to write 10. Okay, because I see it's not written billions here, but sometimes if it's written billions or it's written millions or trillions, then learners should always remember to include that in their answer. Okay, right. Then the next one is briefly describe the term multiplier. Now, when we talk about the multiplier, remember, learners, what we said. We said it refers to where a small increase in aggregate spending is going to cause a larger change in aggregate income. Okay, it's when a small change in aggregate spending results in a much bigger change in our aggregate income, or our aggregate or our national income. Okay, so a learner could have said aggregate income, or a learner could have said national income. Okay, so it's still going to be accepted as correct there. Okay, so you got your 2 marks if you got it right. But what was important there was you are supposed to talk about an increase in spending That's one, resulting in a bigger change in national income. That's for your second mark. So if you just spoke about one and did not talk about the other, you did not define the multiplier. When you define your multiplier, remember, you have got to address issues of spending as well as national income. So income is going to grow at a bigger by bigger size or by bigger margins compared to the increase in your spending. Okay, so just to clarify on that one. Then the next one, how could an increase in investments contribute towards a higher national income in the country? How could an increase in investments result in or contribute to a higher national income in the economy? So let me just highlight here. We are saying an increase in investments resulting in a higher national income. Okay, so what we now know is, you would now recall that now you would now know that when there is an increase in investment in the economy, it results in an increase in production. Is that correct? And then you would now also recall that if there is an increase in production, then it means the businesses would now need to hire more factors of production for them to be able to increase that level of production that they want to achieve. Okay, so what is the effect? The question here is asking about the effect of the increase in investments, how it will contribute to a higher national income. So what it would now mean is, you will find that when there's an increase in investment, it creates more jobs. Okay, and the creation of more jobs results in more income that is going to be earned by households, okay, who are the owners of factors of production. Okay, and that income that is earned by households who are the owners of the factors of production will then have to be spent, so it will eventually result in an increase in aggregate demand. So the most correct thing there was, you are supposed to say it creates job opportunities, and then which increases household income, and then when the household income increases, it results in an increase in our aggregate demand, and then that will be correct for the 2 marks there. Or another learner probably could have spoken about the increase in the capital base of the economy, which is going to expand on the production capacity, or an increase in the capital base. In other words, when there is an increase in investment, it increases our capital base in the country, and that increase of the capital base is what results in an increase in the production capacity. In other words, our ability to produce more goods and services will then increase as well. So you could have given me any one of those, then I was still going to accept that for the 2 marks as correct. Then we are told, suppose that the marginal propensity to save is 0.8, that's our MPS, 0.8. Then the multiplier formula to calculate the eventual change in aggregate income. Use the multiplier formula to calculate the eventual change in aggregate income if there was an injection of 10 billion into the economy. Show all calculations. So what you are supposed to do now, remember, we are given MPS, right? We are given our value for the MPS, and we are told that our MPS is 0.4. So what it would now mean is we are going to have we'll just use this part, and I'm going to say the formula there that we will use. You will use that one, which is the rearranged, because we are given MPS. So we are going to say MPS. Okay, so it's going to be 1 over MPS, okay, which in this case now is going to be 1 over our MPS is given here as 0.4, so it's 1 over 0.4. And if you do that on your calculator, you are going to get your answer as 2,5. Okay, your answer is going to be a 2,5, and this is 2,5 times. Okay, so but the question here is asking us that use the multiplier formula to calculate the eventual change in aggregate income. So this is the value of our multiplier. So now for us to calculate now the eventual change on our national income, I'm just going to do it on this part. For us to calculate now the eventual change on our national income, it would now mean that our national income is going to be equal to, we are going to say the multiplier times our injection. Okay, the multiplier times our injection, which in this case is going to be, my multiplier is a 2,5, and I'm going to multiply that by my injections of 10. Okay, so it means the value of my multiplier, the value of my new national income then becomes, if you go to your calculator, you are going to get your final answer is a 25 billion. Okay, your answer is going to be 25 billion, like that. So that's the answer to the question. So why are we doing that? Because here the question was asking us on the eventual change. Calculate, it says calculate the eventual change in aggregate income. So it meant that you needed to go and calculate your national income. It means our national income is going to increase by 25 billion. It's going to increase by 25 billion. Okay, so that's what we are talking about there. Now I think we have answered that, and I hope you have managed to get all the answers correct there. And the marks, how they are distributed on this one, it means here you get 2 marks here, and then there for calculating the eventual change you get your other 2 marks there. Okay, so I would love to expect that to believe that you got everything right. Okay, because this one was a fairly interesting and easy question. Okay, well done. Now let's just go to the next question. I'm also going to give you another 8-mark question that I will expect you to just try and go through. Okay, let's see how you can handle that one, and I wish you all the best in the question. Okay, so that's the question that we are having, the 8-mark question. It says briefly explain autonomous consumption and marginal propensity to consume. So I think you will be able to manage that one. I will be with you after about 8 minutes. Okay, so just go through it, and then I will join you shortly. All the best. Okay, welcome back, and I want to believe that you managed to answer that question. The question read, briefly explain autonomous consumption. So I'm just going to pick up my highlighter. Briefly explain autonomous consumption. Okay, autonomous consumption and marginal propensity to consume. Okay, your MPC. Okay, so what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to briefly explain it. So here the question that we also need to highlight here, we need to highlight the word explain, because that's what we are supposed to do. Okay, right. So we are supposed to briefly explain. Now briefly explain autonomous consumption and marginal propensity to consume. Now, you do recall that we have looked at autonomous consumption and we said this is consumption that is not linked to the level of income. In other words, this is consumption which is not influenced by any change in the income levels. Are we together there? And then you do now recall that maybe it will be more understandable if I would give you examples. Like you would find that if you buy some groceries or you're buying food, okay, that's an example of autonomous consumption, because whether income level is 0 or it is something, you still need some food to eat. We also have consumption of things like healthy care. Okay, whether you have money or you don't have the money, you still need to gain access to health care. Okay, we have things like transportation. Okay, whether you have the money or you don't have the money, but transportation is needed so that you can be able to move from one area to the other area. So if you look at these are examples of things that form what we call autonomous consumption, those basics, because they are the ones that we need whether someone has an income level or doesn't have an income level. Okay, so that forms part of autonomous consumption. So what we also need to understand is, for us to be able to understand whether this is autonomous or it's not, or it's induced, it has got to be to have passed the test of whether it's going to be influenced by change in income. In other words, if we have more money, are we going to have any change? If we don't have any money, are we going to have any change? Are we not going to demand food because we don't have money? And if the answers to all this is no, then it would mean that we are talking about autonomous consumption, because these are consumptions that come as a result of other things and not really as a result of a change in the income levels. Okay, so that's autonomous consumption. So in this case, I was now expecting that learners were going to say autonomous consumption is consumption or expenditure that occurs when income levels are 0. If you had said that, then you get your 2 marks there. Or another learner could also have said, even if a person does not have income, he still has needs or basic needs. For example, we're looking at those basic needs like food, shelter, water, and those kind of things, health care. So you still have to incur those costs. So if you have said that, again, you get your 2nd mark. And then someone could have also said such consumption is considered autonomous of income only when the expenditure on these does not change when income changes. Okay, only when expenditure on these does not change when income changes, then we consider such an expenditure as autonomous. Okay, right. And then we also have the next. So you could have given me any 2, because this one is an 8-mark question. It's an 8-mark question. So what it meant was you were going to give me 2, but 4 points on each one of the 2. You were supposed to get autonomous. You will be marked up to a maximum of 4. Okay, so you just give me any 2 points, any 2 correct points on this, I will accept it. Under autonomous consumption, you give me 2 correct points under marginal propensity to consume, I accept it as well. So it means that's 4 and 4, then that's how you are marked out of 8. Okay, now, so you could have given me any 2 of those. Then the next one now is marginal propensity to consume. Now, when we talk about the marginal propensity to consume, remember we said this is the portion of additional income that is going to be used to demand goods and services. Okay, so Elena could have started by saying marginal propensity to consume, this is the portion of disposable income which individuals spend on consumption of goods and services. And then you would also find that the other one, marginal propensity to consume, is a system that is used to qualify induced consumption. In other words, we are saying our marginal propensity to consume is the system that we are using for us to be able to qualify our induced consumption, because this is the portion of income that is going to be used on demanding goods and services. So it qualifies our induced consumption. Okay, so which would now mean that if there is an increase in personal consumption, then or personal spending, this will result. This will be as a result of an increase in the disposable income. For you to be able to spend more on your personal consumption, then it is certainly as a result of an increase on the disposable income, or the amount of money that you now have earned. Okay, so this is what these were some of the points that learners could have given as solutions to this 8-mark question. Okay, so I'm going to give you the next brain teaser. We'll go to the next one, and then we'll see what for our brain teaser in this particular video. It reads there: justify the COVID relief grant as a stimulant to the economy post the lockdown. Now, you do recall that when we had the outbreak of COVID, the economy was put in a lockdown, and most countries, when they went into a lockdown, they stopped on every form of production. There was no work that was being done, so there was no production that was being done. It was reduced. It was only the few critical services that were working. Okay, like healthy care, they continued to go to work, but everyone else was not working. Like the industries, they were not producing goods. Households were told to stay at home, and as a way of trying to contain the spread of the virus. Now, after that, what did it mean? It meant that production had gone down. Okay, it also meant that to a certain extent, the demand for factors of production by businesses had gone down, and then it also meant that even households were losing on income. Okay, right. So this question here is asking us to explain or to justify the COVID relief grant, because when the government, now the South African government, when they then decided to lift the lockdown regulations, they introduced a relief grant which was being given to individuals and those people that had lost income as a result of the imposition of the lockdown restrictions. And then even you'd also find that even this amount of money, when it was introduced, it was intended at allowing the people to gain access to the basics. Okay, so now this question, what it wants us to do is, it wants us to justify the COVID relief grant as a stimulant to the economy post the lockdown. So what it means now is, how did the COVID relief grant stimulate the economy post the COVID lockdown? Okay, so let's just attempt that. I'll give you about 5 minutes to think about it closely, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss this. Okay, thank you. Okay, so welcome back, and I think you managed to think through it, and you have understood why it was important. Now, what you need to understand is the COVID relief grant was introduced as a way to try and stimulate the economy, because it created capacity, or it provided capacity to households to be able to buy goods and services, because they would get that amount of money as a grant, and then that amount of money will then need to be used on demanding goods and services. So in as much as it was helping them with the buying the basics, but it would also, on the economic side of it, it would help to stimulate the aggregate demand in the economy, hoping that the businesses, when aggregate demand started growing, then it would would also help businesses to try and increase on the level of production. Okay, so if you spoke about something along those lines where it increased aggregate demand by households, and then resulting in businesses having to start to increase on the level of production to try and match that increase in aggregate demand, then it was going to be accepted as correct. And then you would also need to understand that when we look at the COVID relief grant, because of now we have looked at the concept of the multiplier, it would now mean that we're going to end up having our national income even increasing by sizes or levels that are much higher than the amount that had been spent by government on giving out those relief grants. So that was the whole idea of this thing. It meant that it would increase only the amount of national income. And then why was it going to increase on the amount of national income? It was because it would now have resulted in people demanding more goods and services, okay, using that amount of money. And then in so doing, businesses would certainly respond to that increase in aggregate demand by what? By also increasing their production level, which meant that they would now need to hire more factors of production from households, okay, which would increase household income consequently, and then it would then eventually increase in the level of economic growth. So these are the things that we are looking at in today's video. And if you liked the video, remember to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. All the best in your studies. All the best. Good luck. I'm out.